most thoroughly planned assassination in American history. Some people say the expertise employed, the strategy, the organization involved in Dr. King's murder eclipsed the organization involved in JFK's murder. And they even found that there was a link between the two, that the same governmental forces that wanted JFK murdered later also wanted Dr. King murdered. And keep in mind, just like Tupac, just like Big, although I do not put them on the same level as a Dr. King, but I'm bringing them up to say that Dr. King was supposed to be assassinated while in motion in the car. King's murder, he's supposed to be shot in the car, just like Big and Pop. But when he stepped out onto the balcony, and there's evidence in the book as well that one of Dr. King's pastor colleagues drew him out onto that balcony so they could shoot him rather than run the risk of him accidentally being shot sitting next to Dr. King in a moving automobile. Y'all feel me on that? So he drew him out onto the balcony as if to say, if y'all want to get him here outside in broad daylight, because I don't want y'all taking a chance of trying to shoot him in the car while we are in motion, because he was heading over to one of the pastor's homes for dinner that night. And what was also sad about the Dr. King murder was Dr. King was actually supposed to stay at the Holiday Inn Hotel that night. He's supposed to stay at the Holiday Inn, but black people, as we always do, started criticizing and condemning Dr. King for sleeping at a white hotel, and that's why they ended up changing the hotel to a black hotel, which was the Divine Lorraine Hotel where he was shot in. We actually have a Divine Lorraine Hotel in Philadelphia, which were founded by who? Father Divine, if y'all remember him, of that Christian movement. He's one of those post-Garvey religious leaders who copied Marcus Garvey's work, but redirected our people's energy away from nationalism and into religious beliefs. So Father Divine's organization owned the hotel where Dr. King was murdered, which is now the National Civil Rights Museum. And I strongly recommend, if you have not been to Memphis, Tennessee, to the National Civil Rights Museum, formerly the Divine Lorraine Hotel where Dr. King was murdered, I recommend you go. It's probably the most informative museum in the country about our struggle. The only one that might eclipse it is the Smithsonian, the National Smithsonian in DC. However, the Smithsonian, I have issues with that, with the way in which they present our story. It almost makes you think that we went from slavery to playing basketball and making gangster rap. So I got issues with the way that they roll out the history in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, I've definitely been to the Lorraine Motel in Memphis.
Powerful.
I've been there. Yeah, I've been there.
All right, me and my cousin, we doing this. We started this podcast as like a fun thing to do, right? But now we
Yes,
kind
sir.
of like, we started to get to the point where like I said, we want to uplift and help our black people, right? Especially the people in our city, become an outlet for them to, if it's music, if it's art, if it's whatever it is, to get heard. What would be your advice for people like us who are just starting with a podcast, trying to get the word out? How do we start? What's step one of helping our people in our own inner city where drugs is everywhere, gangs is everywhere? St. Louis is one of the most violent cities in the world. We had the tornado that came through, ripped through the city, took people homes. Like, what should be the first step for us to help those people in our community?
I would say that, well, first of all, the most serious problems we have that I mentioned earlier, mass incarceration, miseducation, gentrification, and homelessness. And by the way, we have the highest black homelessness rate in America since Dr. King walked the earth. Police genocide and brutality and economic apartheid. Those are the 5 biggest problems. Okay. The 5 biggest institutions we need are the schools, the banks, the hospitals, the supermarkets, manufacturing, and distribution, right? But these are big solutions and big problems. You said, what can we do to get started? Education and economics. One of the things I think we need to bring back, brothers, to the black community is the study group. YouTube destroyed the study group movement. If I go back to 2010, when I first took over the Black Consciousness Movement as its #1 speaker and voice, there was a study group in every city. St. Louis, y'all had study groups. Baltimore had study groups. Houston had study groups. Oakland, LA, Chicago, Nashville, Knoxville. Everybody had a study group in 2010. I'm going to say around 2015, YouTube gets so popular amongst black consciousness that people said we don't need to meet and discuss information no more. We don't need to study and come together with information anymore. And that's when everybody just went to the podcast route. The podcast is good. I don't have a problem with the podcast, but go back to the study group, because every revolution, I don't care if you study the Cuban Revolution, I don't care if you study the French Revolution, I don't care if you study the American Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the African revolutions, they all started from a study group. See, if the three of us are studying together, brothers, you're going to learn things about Dr. Umar you're not going to know in this conversation. You know what I mean? When you start getting my opinions and my thoughts on different issues as we read newspaper articles and magazine articles and watch different documentaries and interviews and read books, we're going to get to learn each other. We're going to learn about our background, our lives, our children, what makes us tick, our vulnerabilities, the mistakes we made. And from that study group, you get to choose your inner circle. From that study group, you get to choose your colleagues. From that study group, you get to choose the soldiers that you want to go into war with. A big reason why we don't have more mobility in the Black community is we don't have any loyalty or unity. You can't get mobility until you have loyalty and unity. Now, with other groups, that's not a big problem. Why? Because nobody destroyed the Mexicans' love for themselves, right? Nobody destroyed the Chinese love for themselves. Nobody destroyed the East Indians' love for themselves. Nobody destroyed, excuse me, the Arabs' love for themselves. Nobody destroyed the European Jews' love for themselves, and definitely not for 246 years, as was the case in the United States of America. So with us, most of our people are turned off of Black consciousness. They're turned off from knowledge of self. They're turned off from struggling for the people in the community, because they have been brainwashed and their parents have been brainwashed by public school, white media, and Black church, that fighting for Black liberation is not worth your time. Fighting for Black liberation is something that the Almighty God doesn't even want you to do. You see, so you have to convince Black people that they're in trouble, and you have to convince Black people to work together in order to get out of trouble. Mexicans don't have to convince Mexicans to work together. See, we have an extra step in our struggle because slavery destroyed the self-love and natural unity that exists within the community. We have to rebuild it. And I have no issue with religion as a Pan-Africanist. I believe in freedom of religion. But if I'm going to speak honestly here, my brothers, religion plays a very big role in why Black people can't come together. It's not the only reason, but it plays a very big role, not the belief system, but the political behavior of religions in the Black community. And what I mean by that, if we just take Islam and Christianity, these religions are narcissistic, they are tyrannical, okay, they are imperialist, and they are chauvinistic. What do I mean by that? A Christian will tell you to your face, if you're not a born-again Christian, then you going to hell. If you're not a born-again Christian, I can't work with you. You got Muslims who will tell you the same thing. If you ain't taken your shahada and said that Muhammad is the last prophet, you going to hell. I can't work with you. You can't bring people together when you got religions telling them that it is a sin to work with someone who doesn't worship God the same way that they do. So we're not going to get rid of religion, but we do have to work with religion to soften the narcissism and the imperialism, become less arrogant, less selfish, and a lot more tolerant, because at the end of the day, we don't suffer for how we pray. We suffer because of who we are. So bring back the study groups, my brother. And I strongly recommend y'all start with the young people, because when I travel these universities, our young people, you know, that 15 to 25-year-old group, they're very hungry and very thirsty for knowledge of self. So you can start with them and then bring the older people in. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, 3 challenges you're going to have with a study group, though. Number 1, making sure people read or watch the material. And you got to have strict rules in your study group. In fact, I'm about to restart a study group once FDMG gets approved, and you're going to have to take a quiz when you come into that study group. Before we even talk, you're going to take a quiz to see if you read your work, right? If you got to read chapter 2, I'm going to quiz you on chapter 2. If you fail 3 quizzes, you out the study group. Your third failure, I don't care how soon it comes, how long it comes. If you fail the 3rd quiz, you out the group, because you're not studying, you're not reading, which means you're not taking this serious. Y'all follow me? You're only coming here to socialize. You're only coming here to socialize and be newsy. If you're not going to take the study seriously, this is not a study group. It's just a social circle. And we got enough social circles. We got them all over YouTube. We need serious study groups. So I strongly recommend y'all start with a study group, Saturday school, a boys program. We got to work with the young people. A big weakness of Black America is we do very little for the young people outside of religion and outside of the confines of white philanthropy and finance. If you walk into any city and say, show me the Black organizations or programs we have for children that are not ran by religious doctrine or not funded by white people, you can hardly find them. And then the other side is the economics, my brother. We got to get serious with the economics. That's why you got all these brothers in jail. They're not in jail because they're ignorant. They're in jail because they had to break the law in order to feed their families. You look at all these homeless Black women with their children. We got to get to the economics. We have to motivate our people to pull their money together, build institutions, and take care of our own. This whole food stamp scare, that shouldn't even be going on. Black people should already have a fund for that. We should have an emergency fund for single mothers and children, an emergency fund for our elders, an emergency fund for ex-offenders. You mean to tell me we spending $2 billion on Air Jordans a year, $4 billion on liquor, $1 billion on chicken, turkey, beef, and pork, Black women with a $30 billion beauty bill, and a part of that is Black men as well. And when I say 30 billion, I'm not just talking about weave. I'm talking about soap, shampoo, lotion, shea butter, as well as what they pay to get their hair done. $30 billion, and you got Black girls out here without no job. The crux of the issue, gentlemen, as it relates to economics and education being that first, and that right and left foot to begin this transformation, is that most Black people are comfortable with the way things are. Most Black people are comfortable. Listen, Black people have such a skewed view of freedom that for most of us, freedom means the ability to get on social media, the ability to eat at white restaurants, the ability to live in a white neighborhood, the ability to date a snow bunny or look like a snow bunny. Black people, our concept of freedom is largely equal to my ability to give white people my hard-earned money. When you look at how Black people experience freedom, it's all in shopping. It's all in conspicuous consumption. What do we do outside of shop and buy to actually prove we free? Nothing at all. And you cannot purchase your way into equality.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Sure.
A lot of celebrities, I'm going to give you an example of a few. When Kobe died, when Whitney Houston died, when Michael died, I always felt like the reason that they died, well, not the reason that they gave us for them dying was bullshit. I always felt like that. Can you get into that, like some like the real
Absolutely.
reasons?
Absolutely. And when you deal with assassinations of prominent people, you always have to look at the timing of the murder, right? Dr. King's timing, breadbasket campaign. Malcolm's timing, he was about to keynote a third world revolutionaries conference. You see that? Fred Hampton's timing, I just got elected national spokesperson from the Black Panther Party. Okay? You got to look at the timing. Whitney Houston, concerned about her royalties and her masters. Look at the timing, right? Bill Cosby, who was not physically assassinated, but publicly assassinated. The timing, him and his wife did not want to give the second largest oil company permission to drill under their Massachusetts home, and they was organizing the other homeowners to likewise not give permission for the drilling under their homes of a pipeline for oil. Kobe Bryant, the timing, about to come out with his own player-owned sneaker brand. And Kobe was about to select the first edition of the sneaker within days of his death. And he was also planning a professional basketball association to be headquartered in China. And to that point, LeBron James and I believe Maverick Carter, they also came up with an idea to start their own professional basketball association, and you see how quickly that died out. They came up with it and it's gone no more, right? Because white people don't believe in competition. Competition is a sin. They destroyed competition. There's no bigger lie in the capitalist world than for somebody to tell you we live in a free market economy. There are no free markets. Markets are engineered, markets are sabotaged, markets are controlled, markets are dominated. There is no free trade on this planet. There is no free trade in the United States. So Kobe was murdered because he was going to pose a serious threat to the largest sneaker company and a serious threat to the basketball world. He had to go. Michael Jackson didn't want to sell back his portion of ownership in the Beatles catalog, which in effect made Michael Jackson co-owner of Sony Records. Co-owner of Sony Records.
Running everything.
Michael had to go. And then he tried to buy Marvel Comics. Oh no. We had enough of this guy. You see, once they no longer need you, they get rid of you. Look at LeBron, what he's going through right now with the Lakers, right? Okay. Luka, great player, right? Austin Reeves, great player. It's not that LeBron is no longer the face. It's not that the team don't need LeBron to win. It's the way y'all treating this man who been selling seats in your stadium to keep your revenue coming in. You see, this is the highest scoring athlete in the history of the NBA, and y'all treat him like he's a rookie straight out of college who never made a basket ever in the NBA. Because once white people are done with you, they done with you. And guess what? They're pretty much done with LeBron. And when they divorce you, this ain't no, you don't go to no divorce counseling. You understand? When a white man is done exploiting your talent for personal gain, when he divorces you, he drops you like a bad habit. You never hear from him again. It's like these black athletes who go to these Division I football teams, college teams, 4 years of eligibility, right? So when them 4 years is up, that coach will walk by you on the street like he never even knew you, and you thought y'all was friends and everything. White people have a great way of making black people think they care about you while they're exploiting your talent or your business. I mean, they are master manipulators, and we keep on falling for it every time because we just want to belong and be accepted. So then if we go back in time, you go to Jimi Hendrix, who's the greatest guitar player in history. I believe he significantly influenced Prince too. Okay, but Jimi Hendrix was murdered because Jimi Hendrix was going to finance the Black Panther Party. His girlfriend allegedly was a snitch for the British intelligence of MI6. His manager was British intelligence MI6. His girlfriend changed her story on how Jimi Hendrix actually died that night because they had an argument that night. She actually came to get him from a party that Jimi Hendrix was at, and she was jealous that he was crushing up on some other chick. She came to the party and got Jimmy, took him back to the hotel or wherever they was living at, and he was dead within hours. Overdose. She overdosed him. Never went to jail for it, even though she changed her story 100 times. All of these are murdered. Prince was murdered because he didn't want to give his record company his unpublished music. They lured him back to the negotiating table by saying, if you let us remaster Purple Rain 25th anniversary, we'll give you your masters back. That's what got Prince back, because Prince always wanted his masters back. Y'all remember that? But they said, we're going to give you your masters if you let us remix the 25th anniversary of Purple Rain. And within a couple years, he was gone. They don't play. They're ruthless. African people have trouble understanding the ruthlessness of Caucasian culture. And until we do, we're going to keep on losing. They are ruthless. There is no moral code that controls their behavior, at least when it involves African people.
Okay. All right. So we got people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Marcellus Wiley, right? Who says that, white privilege is not a thing. That's just like, you pretty much you make your own privilege, right? And then one of the big arguments that I always hear about like the slavery and stuff like that is that, hey, black people, the Africans are the one who sold it. It's not the white man's fault. It's the black people's fault for selling you to them. How do you feel about the black people who argue against white privilege? And just for an educational point on the slave trade, is it true that black people in Africa were more than happy to just send black people away to be slaved and chained up and beaten and whipped by white people?
There was complicity from some kingdoms, not most, not all, but there was some complicity from some kingdoms. And what they were doing is they were selling prisoners of war, right? That's how it began. However, the Europeans were not honest with the Africans with regard to what exactly they were going to do with those prisoners of war, because Africans have no concept of chattel slavery. Remember, the Europeans gave chattel slavery to the world. African people have no concept of chattel slavery. There is no concept in traditional Africa of you stripping somebody of their humanity. That does not exist anywhere in Africa. So we did not understand what these Europeans were actually up to. Many of the kingdoms, once they found out what the Europeans were up to, they began to fight back. And there's been plenty of books written on the African resistance to the slave trade. You keep hearing about how some kings participated in the selling, which is true, but you hardly hear anything about the resistance that was put up to slavery once many of those kingdoms found out exactly what the Europeans were doing with their people. We got to understand something. The African slave trade was a European enterprise. They created it. They benefited from it. They expanded it. They even destroyed it in the end. Okay, it was their thing. It was not our thing. And once the European perfected the art of the gun, it was gunpowder that gave him his unfair advantage in Africa. Although gunpowder came from Africa, we primarily used it for cultural and spiritual ceremonies because African people don't have an interest in genocide. That's a Caucasian thing. Like, we don't have an interest in eliminating an entire people. We do now because we've been trained by them. And that's why you got so many humanitarian crises in Africa today, right? But in traditional Africa, there's no concept, I'm going to eliminate every member of that society. I'm not just going to conquer, I'm going to eliminate them. They must be unalived. That's anti-African, that's European. So once the European took the technology of gunpowder from the Africans, and then you also had some technology of gunpowder coming over from China, but mostly from Africa. We had it before the Chinese. Once the Europeans perfected the art in the use of gunpowder and they started creating those early guns, that is what gave them the unfair advantage, because once they had the gun and once they had the bomb, they were able to bomb villages from water without even needing to engage in fist-to-fist armed combat. And so once they started dropping them bombs and once they started coming in with the gun, we were almost at their mercy. But let us be clear, the white man did not have an easy time besieging Africa. Remember, the Zulu Wars lasted almost 100 years. The Ashanti Wars lasted almost 100 years. So it wasn't just the white man showed up with the gun and the bomb and we laid down. Oh, no, no. We died defending our land, and we died fighting against slavery. So did they have a hand in it? Yes. Did they benefit from slavery anywhere near as much as the European? Absolutely not. Did they control the enterprise anywhere near as much as the European did? Absolutely not. And the reason you get people who try to exaggerate the African role in the transatlantic slave trade and minimize the Caucasians' role is they're trying to absolve white people of paying reparations. And we need to be very clear about that. When you see black people running around saying, well, black people sold us, what you're doing is you're helping white folks avoid accountability for the greatest crime in human history. There's not a plague in the Bible that compares to what the European did to the African. And we are not going to forget about what the European did to the African, just like the Jews are not going to forget about what the Germans did to them. And what the Germans did to them lasted 5 to 6 years. What was done to us lasted a half of a millennium. We will never forget. To forget what was done to you is to forget the experience of your people, and it is to turn your backs on your ancestors. I will never forget, because if you forget, it can happen again. Everything that is forgotten will someday occur again. So we must stay vigilant and remind the world that we were murdered, killed, beat, dehumanized, and everybody sat back and watched. African people don't owe nobody shit but an ass whipping.
I'm with that.
All right, I got a question. I used to sit down and talk to my grandfather all the time about this before he passed. How powerful was the Black Panthers?
Man, the Black Panther Party as a militia, and they were much more than a militia. They were also a community outreach and community education movement, right? So I don't want to minimize them to their military, but they were founded for the purpose of what? So it was called the Black Panther Party for self-defense, to defend the community against the police, who pretty much were doing what they still do today, going around beating, killing, and murdering black folks. And so Bobby Seale, who I met, okay, once, Huey P. Newton, they came together, okay, and they said, listen, we're going to stop this from going on. And they organized, brother, and they basically took on the police for black people. And they were in their 20s. What impresses me so much about the Black Panther Party, and there's a lot that impresses me about them, these brothers and sisters were in their 20s. They were babies. They were babies taking on the military wing of the United States government in defense of African people. You heard what J. Edgar Hoover said. He said they were the greatest threat to American internal security. The Panthers was no joke. Imagine having a shootout with the police. They were serious. A lot of Panthers died, but guess what? They also unalived other people who was posing a threat to our community. The Black Panthers is probably, arguably, the most relevant Black organization we've had in America after Garvey. And I say after Garvey because Marcus Garvey's militia, which was the Universal African Legion or the African Guards of Garvey, they too had shootouts with the police. One time, the Honorable Marcus Garvey made the chief of police sit his ass down when he came in there to try to shut down the Garvey meeting. And they basically said, you try to shut us down, we'll shut you down. You know, one of the reasons that the Honorable Marcus Garvey met with the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan is because the Garvey's military and the KKK were shooting and killing each other, particularly in the southern states. Like they were literally at war. And so when Garvey met with the Grand Wizard of the KKK and W.E.B. Du Bois and A. Philip Randolph and other Negroes, they said, this man is crazy. What is he doing sitting down with the leader of the KKK? They didn't understand that you're looking at Garvey, who's the head of a nation, and you're looking at the Grand Wizard of the KKK, who's the head of a nation. They wasn't coming together to be friends. They was coming together for a ceasefire. They was coming together for a ceasefire. And the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan told the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey that a lot of the murders that are happening to Black people in the South are not being done by Klansmen. They're being done by other white people, and they're blaming us for it. So that was just a diplomatic conversation, no different than when Donald Trump sit down and meet with the president of South Korea or the president of China. It's just a diplomatic conversation, and you got to always keep an open line of communication with your enemy, because if you can prevent lives from being lost, why would you not do so?
All right, so I've been paying attention to you for a long time, right? And one of the things that I've always noticed that people try to nitpick and try to bring you down on is the school, right? The first thing people say, oh, he do all this talking, but where's the school? Ain't no school. He taking all these people money, which is something I don't think, I know you wouldn't do, right? So can you give us a status on the school and what's the holdups so we can get these haters out of here?
Yes, indeed. The first thing that comes to mind when I think about the school is, number one, the people complaining have never built a single institution in their life, let alone for Black people, right? So one of the things that I find amusing about the slander that I get on the FDMG Academy campaign is coming from people who have never built shit in their life, let alone for Black people. One of the reasons I don't entertain the negativity and the slander and the defamation of my character is because it's coming from people who don't support me anyway. Like, let's be really real about something. I am the most popular person in Black consciousness probably in the world, second maybe to Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. I'm definitely the most popular person in Black consciousness in the United States. There's nobody even close. I'm the most requested speaker in the entire world. Okay, I'm the only scholar on this planet living right now in the African race who's spoken on every continent multiple times. You understand? I speak more out the country than everybody in the conscious community put together speak in this country. Nobody's even close to Dr. Umar. I am at the top by myself. Quote me on that shit, right? So with that being said, 99% of Black people support me. It's the 1%. See, if you look at the YouTubian struggle streamers and the cyber thoughts, it's always the same 10 people. New videos every day, new videos every week, new videos every weekend. Why you think they got to constantly keep this up? Because the power of positivity that is behind me is so strong that if you're going to try to slander him, you got to do this every day. He get too much love. You can't stop Dr. Umar with one video, two video. You got to keep on doing it. So I say all that to say, good brothers, that in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big idea. It's not a big deal to me because I know the school is coming one day, right? It's like if somebody told you, you told them you was going to buy this car, hypothetically, right? It's taking you a long time to buy that car, but you know you're going to buy that car. What you need to argue for? You want to shut everybody up when you get the car. So it's the same thing with the school. What am I arguing for? The only way I win this is to produce it. You see what I'm saying? But let us be clear, gentlemen, this is not about people thinking Dr. Umar is stealing the money. We've been audited twice already because of the struggle streamers. And this is how disingenuous the struggle streamers and cyber thoughts are. They don't just slander me on YouTube. What a lot of people don't know is they actually try to sabotage the work. I had one struggle streamer, y'all all know who he is, I'm not going to call his name, but he actually impersonated me on a phone call to the utilities company in Delaware. They taped them and let me hear it. They taped them. He called up there saying, I'm Umar Johnson. He used my name, my phone number, my address, and he actually got access to the accounts. Once we found out, we had to put a certain passcode on the account so can't nobody access it but me. He tried to get the gas shut down, the electric shut down, the water shut down. You see what I'm saying? They don't just hate. They try to stop the work. And there's nothing more hypocritical than slandering somebody. Where the school at? And then I'm going to go behind his back and try to stop the school from happening. You follow me? They called the city. They've made all kind of false complaints against us. They said things like he's getting work done on the school without the proper payment permits, which has never happened, right? They've called the attorney general on me. They've called the FBI on me. They've called the governor on me. We've been audited twice because of them. Like, they vandalized the school. You know what I mean? They don't just slander YouTube. I want y'all to understand. This is not just we're going to talk bad about him on YouTube. No, they will impersonate me. They will contact the city government, the federal government. These people are so jealous and so envious and so full of self-hate that they're actually trying to stop the work. This is not just YouTube, brothers, because I could care less about YouTube. What do I care? You know what I mean? But they're actually trying to stop the work. So, you know, that's the sad part. Now, I will say this. When we first purchased FDMG, and it'll be 7 years on February 7th, we got the school February 7th of 2019. So that's 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, it'll be 6 years. February 7th of 2026 will be 6 years. And when we first bought the school, because they're so modern buildings, I thought it would only take us 3 years to get the school open. You know what I mean? If that, because the schools were half done anyway. But I completely underestimated the dishonesty and the lack of integrity that we've had to face from black contractors. We've never had a black contractor finish the work we paid them for yet. Not the floor contractor, not the paint contractor, not the HVAC, not the plumber, not the electric. Not a single black contractor has ever finished the work we paid them to do. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate, because if I would have just went with white people in the beginning, we probably would have been done 3 years ago. But I wanted to keep the money in the community because it's black people's money. Let me recycle this back to black people. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure we got great black contractors out there, and we need to find some for the high school. So if there are any serious black contractors out there who actually finish the work that they're paid to do, feel free to reach out to us. But you got to be licensed in the state of Delaware, and you got to be licensed in the city of Wilmington. And that's another thing too, brother. You had people jumping up on internet lying. Oh, we was going to come and volunteer and do the work. And you know what's funny about that? We haven't had one person ever come to us saying they was going to do work for free, had a license in Delaware and a license in Wilmington show up. Nobody. That's a complete lie. You can't come and do work unless you license in Delaware and license in Wilmington. And then on top of that, these Negroes think I'm so stupid that just because you show up with a paintbrush and a bucket, I'm supposed to open up the door and just let you do what you want to do with the type of haters I got. People will come in there and mess some shit up. You understand? Just to try to undermine and stop what we're doing. And the big reason, good brothers, that so many people want to stop what we're trying to do, again, most people are supporters. But that little untalented tip, that little camp of coons out there, that little camp of coons, a big reason why they want to stop what we're doing is because when we open this school, there's no debate as to my place in Black history. There's really no debate now.
I don't
But
think it's a
once you
debate
get
right
that
now.
institution, once you get that institution, Booker T. Washington left that institution. You see what I'm saying? Once Dr. Umar leaves an institution that was built and financed without a single penny from white folks or any other group, there ain't nothing left to be said. Because how can the most requested, the most traveled, the most busy, how is he the one who builds an institution? He's busier than all y'all, the other people in consciousness. They not building nothing. All they do is go from city to city talking, most of the time regurgitating my talking points. I'm just going to be honest. If I got paid every time one of them regurgitated my talking points, I'd probably be a millionaire. Okay, but if I got, the bottom line is I'm the busiest of them all, and I'm still the first one to build an institution. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, fellas, I am not in any way, shape, form or fashion embarrassed by the fact that the school isn't open in 6 years. I thought it would be open in 3, as I said, but I'm cool. You know why? Because what we're doing, we're the first to do it. So when people say, why is it taking them so long? My question is, compared to who? It's taking us so long compared to, because what we're doing, nobody ever done it before. We are not a charter school. You understand? We are not a bougie white, excuse me, a bougie black private school. You know what I mean? This is African centered school. So when people say, why is it taking so long? It's taking so long compared to what? A public school? We ain't a public school. A charter school? We ain't a charter school. A Catholic school? We ain't a Catholic school. A home school? Anybody could open up a basement, go get a couple books from the dollar store and claim they got a school. You got celebrities running to Africa, right? Getting empty buildings and putting some desks and chairs in there with a couple books and pencils from the dollar store saying they got a school. A school is not a school because you got a building with papers and pencils and books in it. A school is a school because you got a curriculum and you teaching and you transforming minds. And you know what's interesting too? You've never seen this many celebrities talk about building a school until I said I was opening one. If you go back and look when we started the fundraising in 2014, when nobody talking about schools like this. Now everybody want to do a school, right? But when you look at what they got, you got an empty building with some dollar store pads and some dollar store pencils. That ain't no damn school. So, you know, but I just let people talk. You got other people claim they got schools. They ain't even got no school. They don't get asked no questions either. I'm the only one who gets asked the questions, but that's because I'm the most serious person. You know what I mean? But it's all good. I mean, I love it. I take the good with the bad. I thank God for putting me in this position. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen when it did happen in September and October of 2010 with that Chicago interview and that Harlem lecture, and my life changed overnight. It caught me off guard. I didn't know it was happening. I didn't know it was coming, but it came. You know what I mean? And I thank God for it. You know, I would not undo it. I wouldn't change nothing. I've learned so much. You know what I mean? And I'm just getting started. We got a whole lot more to do.
Yes, sir. Well, I got a question since you mentioned schools. I heard a, I heard a little bit of what you said last time, but I want to talk about Dion
Mm-hmm.
when he was with Jackson State
Mm-hmm.
and he left and went to Colorado. And I know you have an issue with that.
I ain't like it.
Yeah, I didn't like. First of all, I want to say blessings to Dion. I know he's going through some health things right now. We pray for him. You know what I mean? The family. You know, I can disagree with you politically and still want what's best for your life. You understand me? Like there's no, anytime a black man is under fire, I'm going to stand with him if I believe, you know, he hasn't had a chance to defend himself, right? And so again, I think he's a great, great father. You know, he doesn't have an activist bone in his body. He's never going to fight for black people, but he's a great father and a great coach, and and one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. The reason I was upset with Dion is because we have to be about the business of transforming systems. We have to be about the business of transforming systems. Dion was in a position to transform the college football system. This is a multi-billion-dollar empire. He could have redirected that college to pros pipeline through the HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
Dion could have literally changed history, and he gave it all up to go to an all-white college with only 2% black students and 1% black people in Boulder, Colorado. And let me share this with you. The reason they had to get Dion out of Jackson, this was not just about Dion taking the money. Remember, everything is about what? Timing.
Mm-hmm.
Timing. Why did they need Dion out of Jackson at that time? Because the Supreme Court was at the time hearing what? Arguments on affirmative action in higher education. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court did what? Not long after Dion went to Colorado, they overturned affirmative action in higher education, meaning what? Right now, you cannot use race as a factor in admissions in college. Remember, that had been allowed. That had been allowed since the 50s. So they overturned something that was with us, a law, a statute, a governing principle for over 50 years. And as a result of that, the black presence on the predominantly white campus is down significantly because of that, because you can no longer account for race. Okay. And to make it worse, gentlemen, guess what? The HBCUs are dealing with. The HBCUs are being told by Trump's government that if you give Black children preferential treatment in your admissions process at an HBCU, we can sue you. Did y'all hear what I just said? HBCU, schools that were founded by Black people, for Black people, or by the state in some cases, for Black people, to correct the inequity in education in society. These very institutions that grow out of the enslavement of our ancestors are being told that if you give Black people preference, we will consider that reverse racism, a violation of the 14th Amendment, and we will sue you or try to shut you down. I don't know if y'all saw Donald Trump's interview the other day. There's a clip going viral from Donald Trump's interview the other day with a white female interviewer, where she asked Donald Trump, why is he letting all these immigrants into the country if you're so pro-America first, right? And part of Donald Trump's response, go and watch this. This conversation had nothing to do with HBCUs. And guess what Donald Trump said? He said, if we don't let the Chinese or the other immigrants in, HBCUs won't have enough students for their enrollment. What do Chinese immigrants have to do with enrollment for the HBCU? Do you know what he almost gave away there? The reason why you got so many white billionaires making heavy donations to the HBCUs is they are about to gentrify the HBCUs. They're going to start flooding them with Chinese. They're going to start flooding them with Indians. They're going to start flooding with Native Americans. They're going to start flooding them with Latinos. And by the way, this did not start on Republican watch. This started on Democrat watch. Remember, Joe Biden changed the name from the White House Initiative on HBCUs to the White House Initiative on colleges and universities that serve students of color. It's no longer the White House Initiative on HBCUs. It's the White House Initiative on universities that serve students of color. So Joe Biden started this thing off, and Donald Trump is going to finish it. See, we need to understand something, brothers. When it comes to us, there is no Democrat and Republican. There is no Democrat and Republican when it comes to us. There's only one party when it comes to us, and that's the African Elimination Party. They want to gentrify the HBCU because most Black professionals, or should I say, the HBCU is responsible for us having a Black professional class. Most of our doctors come from where? Most of our lawyers come from where? Most of our engineers come from where? Most of our teachers come from where? The HBCU. If you kill the HBCU, you could damn near put Black people back in poverty as a race. And that's exactly what they want to do. Starve them and then eliminate them. And since they don't love themselves enough to save themselves, see, some people say Black people are their own worst enemy. We are not our own worst enemy, brothers. The white man invests in your destruction. You don't invest in your destruction. The white man plans your destruction. You don't plan your destruction. The white man creates systems and institutions to sabotage your growth. You don't do that. You're too disorganized to do that. So we are not our own worst enemy, but we are the worst accomplice to the enemy. We suffer not just because of what the government allows to be done to us. We suffer because of what we will not do for ourselves.
All right. So earlier you spoke about the difference between hip hop and gangster music. Do you feel like gangster music has negatively impacted the community, or do you feel like it was simply a mirror of what was going on in the Black community?
Okay, great question. Let me say this. Art, any kind of art, but particularly the expressive arts, you have a dual responsibility as an artist. Some people consider me as an orator and artist. So let me use me for an example, right? When I speak to the people, I have to, number one, reflect the reality. I have to state with emphasis what we are going through right now. Y'all with me on that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the gangster rapper. I'm going to tell you what life is like in the ghetto. I'm going to tell you what life is like in the hood. But then I have another responsibility as an orator. Not only must I tell you what's going on, I have to also project and help you dream and envision a new future that I want you to work towards. Y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
The gangster rapper keeps telling us, I'm just telling you what's going on in the hood. Everybody listening to that bullshit know what's going on in the hood because they live there too. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't need you to keep reminding us of what we already live. You see Boys in the Hood. Okay. Now you come up with Menace to Society. That's the same shit that was in Boys in the Hood. Why you got to keep reflecting the same thing? Show us how to change it. Show us a better way. Rest in peace to John Singleton. I was a big fan of his work. My point is, gentlemen, I don't have a problem with the gangster rapper stating the realities of the hood, but I have a big problem with the gangster rapper not giving our people a vision to work towards. The average gangster rapper who has at least 3 albums out only got 1 or 2 constructive songs out of 30. That's not acceptable. And they think because they gave us 1 or 2 constructive songs about how they were sad growing up in the ghetto, how they lost their grandmama, their dad, da da da. But out of 30 songs, you only got 3 good ones. What do we know about the brain? The brain is the creature of repetition, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
The one weakness of the greatest instrument God ever created, which is the human brain, the one weakness is the brain will always believe what it hears the most. True or false, the brain will always believe what it hears the most. That's why when you go to church, they indoctrinate with Jesus, 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 Muhammad, Muhammad, Muhammad. You go to the military, Marine Corps, Marine Corps, America, America. You go to public school, Pledge Allegiance, Pledge Allegiance, Pledge Allegiance, National Anthem, National Anthem, because repetition is the slave master of the brain. So there's no way you're doing a service to your community, putting out 3 albums of filth with 3 positive songs. It is not acceptable. They put out that filth because that's exactly what the untouchable overlords of the music industry expect them to do. They are selling destruction to their own people. We are the only race in human history. We are the only race in human history who participated in the assassination of their own public image. You can't find another group of people who volunteered. I'm going to volunteer to participate in the destruction of my people's public image before the world. And you see it with black women with the reality shows and also with the gangster rap. You see it with black women in the reality shows, constantly putting out negative images of black women as sexually promiscuous and addicted to materialism. And this is what our girls are watching. They're literally re-engineering us through social media and television, and nobody's doing nothing about it. I heard a father say one time, I let my son listen to gangster rap. I don't keep nothing away from my son. You idiot. You're letting your son be indoctrinated by gangster rap. He's going to listen to that every day, all day, and he's going to begin to believe exactly what the rappers are telling him to believe. You don't let your kids listen to filth. Our children are divine. Our children are divine. We're supposed to be protecting the mind because this is soil. The mind is a seed. It is soil. Whatever you let get planted in your child's mind will sooner or later bear fruit. You're supposed to protect the mind of children.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things we have allowed our children to experience in the 21st century is they have been adultified. They have been adultified as children. There's no longer a clear distinction between what a child is and what a child is not in the Black community. There's no longer a clear distinction between what a child can do and what a child cannot do in the Black community. Children are listening to things that adults used to only listen to. They are watching things. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls from Black parents complaining about the pornography, the online pornography that their sons and daughters are watching on a daily basis. And I'm saying to myself, what about the parental controls? You do know it's parental controls. Oh, he don't want me to touch his phone. Excuse me, what did you just say?
Ain't got no choice. It's your kid.
And that's another problem we got, fellas. We got a problem where the children are raising the parents. I walk into some of these homes, the children are raising the parents. They tell the parents what to do. They tell the parents what to believe. They tell their parents what to spend their money on. And these parents, because they suffer from a guilt complex because they couldn't give their child the world, or his daddy in jail, his mama died young, so I'm just going to spoil him. The worst thing you can do to a black child in America is to spoil them. Like El Hajj Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X said, you got to be twice as good to get half as much. Spoiling a black child is to make them useless to the society.
All right, since we were talking about children in the household,
Mm-hmm.
how important is it to have a black father in the house?
It's
Actually
important.
in the house.
It's important to have a black father and a black mother in the house.
Yes.
I want to be very clear about that. Neither parent is more important. You need both. If you grow up only with your father, you're going to have issues because your mama wasn't there. If you grew up only with your mama, you will have issues because your daddy wasn't there. So we need two-parent homes. But to your question, specifically with the father's job is to teach the discipline, the self-control, and the father sets the boundaries. The father's job is to prepare the child for life outside of the home, right? He's the disciplinarian. He's the masculine principal. He's the disciplinarian. He's the structure bearer. The mother is the feminine principal. She is the love, the nurture, and the support. When you don't have the mother in the house, there may not be enough love, nurture, and support. Too much discipline. These are children who overachieve. Children who grow up with their fathers, assuming the father was functional and healthy, they are the overachievers, but they also the dope addicts, the alcoholics, the weed smokers, right? They're the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, but they're also the undercover opioid addicts. Why? Because their father made them work so hard that they ended up achieving everything they wanted, but they were never valued for who they are. They was only valued for what they could produce. You see that? And so black fathers, we have to make sure we don't make the mistake of making our children believe that they are only valued if they produce. You got to tell your child, I love you just because you are you. Whether you win in football or not, whether you are valedictorian of the class or not, whether you get accepted to med school or not, I love you because you are you. But fathers tend to forget to do that because normally that's maternal. But there's a such thing as masculine love too, and we got to make sure we give that, right? And then if the father's not there and you only got the mother, they got all the love, all the hugs, all the self-assurance, no goddamn discipline.
Mm-hmm.
These is the kids with the Jordans on and the gold chains and the Balenciaga and the Gucci and the Louis Vuitton, fell in every class in school, tattoos all over their body, come home whenever they want. Mothers do not do a good job with discipline and boundaries. They never have. They never have. And I'm not expecting black mothers to be perfect, but they do need to do a better job, and many of them can. Three biggest reasons why black mothers tend to fall short with discipline. Number one, they're worried about their man more than their children. Black mothers, I know you need a man. I know you lonely, but you got to make sure you raise those children right. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you put a man before your children will grow up to hate you. I see it all the time. I said, don't you put no man in front of your kids. That's number one. Chasing a man instead of chasing the best interests of their child. Number two, mothers are dealing with their own emotional and medical problems, right? And that's hard. You got to raise 3, 4, 5 kids. You got diabetes. You got lupus. You might be dealing with cancer, God forbid. You got depression. You got anxiety. You addicted to cigarettes. So we got to wrap arms around our single mothers. For me personally, I'm tired of single black mothers being blamed for everything that goes on wrong in our community. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. Let's call it black mom fatigue. Black mom fatigue. I believe the black community is suffering from black mom fatigue. I think black women are so tired of being responsible for the kids. So tired. They've been responsible for the kids for over 50 years. They are tired and they're going through fatigue. And black men are not stepping up to help them. And when I say black men, it should be the father, right? But even if the father not there, what about the other men in the community? I was on an interview. You guys probably saw a clip of it with the Deli Rap crew, the 3 young brothers from New York City. And we had that long conversation about male-female relationships that went viral. And one of the brothers said, shout out to the Deli Rap Crew, one of the brothers said, why should I be responsible for a woman's poor choices in men? He said, why should I be responsible for a woman's poor choices in men? And my response to him was what? You are responsible because there are poor men that she can choose from in the first place. If black men were raising black boys the way that they needed to be raised, there would be no Ray Ray and no Pookie. The reason you got a Ray Ray, the reason you got a Pookie is because we as black men are not hands-on in our community. I mean, let's just be honest. Most of us, the minute we can afford it, we run from the ghetto to a white suburb anyway. We only come back to the black community to coach football or basketball. We not in these streets trying to raise their boys. If we were in these streets trying to raise these boys, do you really think we would have the youth homicide rate that we got right now? Hell no. Black men don't care. And then we got to check ourselves as men. And I'm always going to be harder on us than the queens because we the men, we the leaders. So I'm always going to be harder on us. Whenever I hold black men accountable, the first thing some of the simps will say is, why you ain't holding the women accountable too? I do hold the women accountable, but we're not talking about them. We talking about us. And if you want our black women to yield to you as the king, as the emperor, you have to take responsibility. A king is responsible for the kingdom. So how are you talking about black women want me to, they don't want to submit to us and they don't want to give us the leadership role. Bro, don't nobody give nobody leadership. You take it. And you take it by your example. And if we are the men that our women want us to be, they will gladly follow our lead. But you cannot expect a black woman to work 2 and 3 jobs, raise 2 and 3 kids, and then come home and kiss your ass. She's not going to do that, nor should she.
Let's go. You know, it's funny you went there because I wanted to get some black woman appreciation going on. But I think you kind of hit that on the head. You kind of like gave the love and things like that because, you know, they see so much on the internet with the black man versus black woman, right? It's black women don't do this. Oh, she got the fake hair, the BBL. She got the bad attitude. No, she hears that all the time.
Yep.
So it's good to hear somebody on your stature to speak out on the appreciation and the struggles they go through. I was raised by a single mother. You know what I'm
So
saying?
was
So I saw
That's
that
what my
every
family
day.
was. Yes, sir.
Right. And the
And I
women
have a
in my
great
family,
relationship with my mother, so.
yeah, and the women in my family, I always want to give a shout out to them. I love y'all because y'all, watching all them raise all the kids in the family was just an amazing thing to see. So I don't think they get the appreciation that they deserve, and I'm glad that you just took the moment to go ahead and give them that appreciation because they need to hear stuff like that.
And I would also say that I have been amazed to see some amazing single parent jobs done by some young black mothers. Like I have evaluated some children in these schools and I have met some children in these schools where I thought they came from 2-parent homes because they were so well raised, so focused on their academics, still had their innocence, respectful, humble, stay in a child's place. I'm like, they must have a mother and a father. And she comes in there, and it's a single mom, and I gotta commend them. I'm like, you did a damn good job. And then she says, well, I got 2 or 3 kids. I'm like, wow. So there are a lot of success stories in our community that, don't get their flowers. And one of the things that I want to do at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, and, I got to tell y'all, fellas, nobody wants the school open more than me because I'm the one who has to live with it. These people who hate, and they're not down there every day with me. They don't live through the frustrations and the failures. They don't feel the pains that I go through. But one of the things we want to do once we open a school is we want to start having a Black Woman's Day where we celebrate the Black women. We're going to have a Black Man's Day too. You know what I mean? But for mothers who do a good job, we want to honor them. We want to have people nominate them. We want to have sister circles where Black women could come and just be alone and talk about their issues as Black women without somebody trying to shove a Bible or Quran down their throat. You know what I mean? So there's so much we need to do because we have to create community again. We have to create community again. And one of the things I want to do with FDMG is create community. And the beauty of FDMG, not to get off topic, but the beauty with FDMG is we are at the intersection of 4 states. Wilmington, Delaware is 15 minutes from Northern Maryland, 15 minutes from Southern New Jersey, 15 minutes from Southern Pennsylvania, and of course, Delaware. So we will be able to serve our people in 4 states, not to mention those who come from New York, come from Virginia, come from other places, Connecticut, and so forth, and around the country, because everybody's invited, but there's just so much we're going to be able to do at that school, because there's a lot of Black people who want to be part of a community. They want to be part of something that matters, but they don't see it unless it got a religion attached to it. And